Hey everybody, it's the Grateful Gardener here. We're going to do home composting. I want to make it as easy for you as possible. So let's just get right into it. What is compost? Compost is any broken down organic materials. Leaves, veggie scraps, shredded paper, even twigs, sticks, bark, grass clippings, all of that. We're going to insert a list into the video that's going to show you a list of all the things we refer to as organic material. They come in two forms, browns and greens. Browns are hard carbons, greens are nitrogens. We're going to have a sweet list for you, so you'll be able to check that out, and it'll make it nice and easy so you'll know what you can put into your home compost pile. Compost by law is organic matter that reached 120 degrees for 14 consecutive days. We're not going to be doing lawful composting. We're going to be doing home composting, so that way you can reduce your home garbage waste, and so you can make something really awesome that you can use in your gardens or on your lawn. All right, so let's talk about building a pile. You've got your list of ingredients, so you know what can go into your pile. And real quick, when you're building your pile, you can put it anywhere in your yard. It's best not to put it directly in the garden, but really it can go anywhere you want it to. The most effective place would be to put it in some partial shade. The reason for that is that one of the primary ingredients in a compost pile is actually water. Dry stuff sitting in a pile isn't really going to break down. So you got to water your pile. If you want it to take a really long time, you don't have to water it, just let the rain do the work, but it's going to take probably twice as long. If you can water your pile and keep it moist like a wrung out rag, your pile is going to break down in half the time as if you just use rain, unless it's a really rainy season. This year I have a compost pile at home that's just sitting there. It hasn't done anything. Every time it rains though, I can see it breaking down, but we haven't had any rain this year, so it's a really important thing to remember. Watering your compost pile is as important as watering your garden. So if you put it in some partial shade, it's going to stay more moist, which is going to help facilitate the process of breaking it down. What's breaking down your organic matter is biology. It's primarily bacteria. The bacteria is eating the stuff you put in the pile. Things that are nitrogen, like veggie scraps, if you just throw the veggie scraps on the ground in your yard, they're going to turn into a rotten pile of stuff. So what we have to do is get a right ratio of dry stuff to wet stuff, carbon to nitrogen. Your dried leaves, your newspaper, your cardboard, straw, all those things are carbon, and they balance out the pile by giving the nitrogen a counterpoint, so that the nitrogen and all the bacteria that's going to feed on that doesn't just suck all the oxygen out of the pile. But for you, what I'm going to do is give you some easy tips on how to start. The way to do it is to gather. I'm always coaching people to gather. So if you look, we've gathered some ingredients here. We have some seaweed, we have some horse manure, we have a couple big bags of leaves. Weymouth is a great town because they allow you to do curbside pickup of your leaves. And so I got those leaves off of the side of the street from somebody that was putting them out. I tend to go for a yard that's less manicured because it indicates to me that they're probably not using a heavy dose of pesticides and herbicides, which I don't want in my pile. So I'm going to mix all these things together, and the reason I want to do that is so I have a homogeneous blend of nitrogens and carbons. That way I get a good blend, and then there's going to be a process that builds heat. As the bacteria literally release gas, they help break down the pile. All right, so now let's talk about where you can compost. You can compost anywhere where you have space, and you can make your composting setup as elaborate as you possibly want. There's tons of awesome videos or photographs on the internet of different types of composting. We're going to insert some cool pictures of things that we think will be effective for you into the video, so you can get some ideas. But one of the easiest things to do is to talk to your town. A lot of towns have a municipal type composter that you can get for free. Today we're going to use a really cool composter that I like. It's called a compost sack, and it's literally just a big bag. This is made by a company here in the United States. They make smart pots and compost sacks. They're made out of recycled water bottles. And then we have this one over here. And this is the one that we've been using here at the Weymouth Food Pantry Garden. And it's going to be an excellent example of what goes into a compost and what happens. So I'm going to open this guy up right now, and you guys are going to be able to see what's happened to the things that we've put in here. Down at the bottom, you can see that there's, I'm just gonna open it right up and you can see what's happened. All right, so you got all this brown woody material on top. Those look like peas that we grew here in the spring. Here you have a bunch of leftover, I'm gonna say maybe beets or radishes of some sort. And as you get down to the bottom, you can see all the wood chips that got in here and weeds. But then you also see this stuff. And because the container was here in a municipal area, we did get some folks putting garbage in it, but we've gotten on top of that. But obviously this isn't gonna break down, so it can't go in your composter, can it? So we're gonna sort through all of this, and then we're gonna bring out some fresh ingredients, and we're gonna show you exactly how to build a pile at home. All right, so we've had a chance to sort through the pile, and we've gotten most of the garbage out. I just wanna show you what happened at the bottom, because it did start to break down. And we also did find some things that'll be a good example of what does happen. So down here at the bottom, you can see that we've started to actually break down. Even this stuff that was matted together, you can see has started to break down and form into what we're looking for at the end, which is basically just gonna look like dirt. That's what it's gonna look like. That's the ultimate goal, is something that ends up looking like dirt. But I found this piece of cardboard in here, and cardboard is one of the ingredients that would be able to go into a compost pile. But what you wouldn't want is this, the ink. This ink part, you don't want the ink into your compost pile. A lot of things are printed with soy ink these days, and so it would be safe. But for our purposes, just to be on the safe side, we're just gonna get rid of that. But we can leave this because this is paper. It's from a tree, so it will break down and turn into soil again, compost. All right, so I got all these materials out here. I got leaves, I got seaweed, I have horse manure, and I have the contents from the pile that we had built in the old composter. And I'm gonna just mix them up. You see that I'm just gonna make this pile. I got leaves. Now, I'm gonna mix it all together. You don't need to see a video of me mixing it all together, but once it's all mixed, then we're gonna start the video again, and so you can see that. And then we're gonna load it into the compost sack. That way we have this great base, which is gonna be a place for you to start doing your weekly or monthly addings to the pile. All right, so now you can see that I've got the ingredients mostly mixed up, and I've been adding them into the compost sack. But like I said, water is one of the most important ingredients. So as we go, I'm gonna be adding water. Not only is it gonna help wet the ingredients, but it's also gonna compact the stuff down in there so I can fit more. Like I said, you gotta water your pile if you want it to break down. All right, so now we've gotten all the materials mixed together and we put them into the compost sack. As we went, I was watering it, as easy as just dumping the water in like this. Now, one of the things I hear a lot about home composting is, what do I do with my veggie scraps? A lot of people have these special things they keep them on the kitchen counter with. I'm gonna teach you a really cool trick that's gonna make it so much easier for you when you add the things to your compost pile, and you're not gonna have to have the stuff sitting on your counter. Keep some sort of bowl on your counter when you chop up your veggie scraps, and then on your back porch or outside your back door, get a 5-gallon bucket with a lid and fill it 3/4 of the way full with dried leaves or shredded paper or cardboard, whatever your brown is gonna be, and it's 3/4 full, so that means your ratio when you add the greens to it is already going to be 3-to-1. Once your bucket's full, you go over and you dump it onto the pile, and guess what happens? The greens are underneath the browns, which covers them up, and you don't end up with stinky vegetables on your pile sitting out there. They're already covered, and that makes it just that much easier for you. In the video, we're going to have some great pages that tell you what the browns and greens are, and there are also going to be different photographs of different types of composting setups. This is a simple setup. You build the pile first, and then that way you can just add to it as you go, and you don't really have to turn it. But at some point you will have to stop adding more material to it and then just let it sit. In this instance, it's gonna take a good year or more to break down. The only way to make compost happen faster is to be able to have a big volume and then to turn that pile over every 3 to 6 weeks for about 3 to 6 months. And then that will mix the pile and facilitate the process of complete breakdown. I've done it, it works awesome. It's a lot of work. I prefer this method because you can just get it going, and then for the summer you add your stuff and then forget it. You stop adding to it and you start a new one. You're going to need about 3 areas to be able to accommodate the average household amount of waste that you use. In this one more note, we use seaweed. The reason we use seaweed is because we're in the middle of a crazy drought right now and there's no green grass clippings around. But generally my preferred green would be lawn clippings because they're free and readily available to all of us. We're lucky here in Massachusetts that we could take a trip to the beach and get some seaweed. But really the waste you want to be using is your lawn clippings. So I hope that you've learned a lot from this. This is Todd, the Grateful Gardener, and thanks to the Weymouth Food Pantry and all of the community that makes this garden happen, and happy gardening.